This will be the first of 4 videos which covers how to graph rational expressions, rational functions actually. There are 3 main things we're going to talk about. The first is domain. And to remind you, when we are talking about domain, the first thing that we talk about or consider is that it should go from negative infinity to positive infinity. And then we look for restrictions. Now, since rational functions are one polynomial divided by another polynomial, this means that what we are looking for is what restrictions would there be under these circumstances. And whenever you see polynomials, the first thing you should consider is to factor them. So we would do that first. And then once we've factored the polynomials, then our concern is, when is the denominator possibly equal to 0? So we take the factored form of the polynomial and set that equal to 0, which means we're then taking each factor and setting it equal to 0. And then we will discover the values that would actually cause the denominator to equal 0, and those are the ones we are going to restrict from the domain. The next basic thing we're going to talk about are asymptotes, and there are 3 types of asymptotes. And these are the abbreviations you can use for them: VA, HA, and SA. This first one, these are the vertical asymptotes, and they are actually determined by the domain. So when we find the restrictions on the domain, we are also finding the vertical asymptotes. Horizontal asymptotes are determined by leading coefficients. Actually, leading terms would be a better description. Leading terms, and that's in the numerator and the denominator. And those result in the horizontal asymptotes, and there are 3 possibilities there, and we'll go into more detail when we talk about them more specifically. Slant asymptotes only occur when the numerator has an exponent on the leading term that is 1 larger than the one on the denominator. And so a very simple example of that would be x cubed over x squared. This has a slant asymptote. And one other thing you would want to keep in mind is that you can either have horizontal or you can have slant asymptotes. But in the functions we're going to be working with, you would never have both. It would be one or the other, or you could have none. All right, the last basic thing we're going to look at are transformations, and we're going to specifically look at transformations of the function 1 over x and 1 over x squared. And those transformations are going to follow the rules that we talked about earlier in the semester. So if we had something of this form, then C would be determining the horizontal change, and D would be determining the vertical change. With the 1 over x squared, we would see it looking like this: x plus C squared, and then plus D out here. But again, C is going to determine any horizontal change to the function, and D is going to determine the vertical change to the function. So if you go to the video that is marked as number 2 for this, that will begin our discussion of domain in more specific terms.